Hello, everybody. My name is Riccardo Osai. I'm a creative producer and brand photographer. I'm here today to have an espresso with Benjamin Drury. Benjamin is the culture guy, and we met recently through Collaboration Global. So, Benjamin, welcome to my espresso. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you very much for inviting me. Looking forward to having a very strong coffee with you.
Good. We all need a good coffee in the morning, isn't it? Well, any time of the day, isn't it? So it's never too late. So Benjamin, we met recently and we started to chat about what you do, and you are the culture guy. So I wanted to ask you a bit more about, just briefly to describe who you are and what you do.
Yeah, as you said, I'm otherwise known as the culture guy, and I help organizations build culture, which seems a little bit ethereal. But all it means is making your workplace awesome, making it somewhere that people want to work, making it somewhere where people thrive, building a place that actually does some good. That's what building culture is about, creating a place where people can do their best work.
Fantastic. And so let's get to the theme of the day, which is how building culture enables deep connections. So first of all, I mean, you briefly touched on that. So we often talk about culture, and we hear, people talking about culture. So, well, let's start with that. So what is actually culture? Can you define culture, and just tell us a bit more about that?
It simply, culture is from the Latin word cultura, which means to grow, and a culture is just a place in which something grows. Now, what grows depends on the culture. We might grow some weeds, we might grow some beautiful flowers. It all depends on what the culture is. But a culture is simply an environment, and actually it's nothing more than that. But when you're talking about business, when people come together to do something, what you end up with is a shared set of values, a shared way of doing things, a shared understanding of the world to some degree. And that is what your culture is. And often in business and in communities, if you're not really explicit about it, it'll coalesce to the lowest common denominator, and you end up with a culture that nobody's really happy with. And that's why, people like me do the work that we do, so we can be really explicit about what type of culture we're going to build. If you leave a garden unattended, it's not going to grow the sort of beautiful flowers and things that you want. Whereas if you spend time tending it, making the soil, getting the right nutrients, plant the right seeds and the right bulbs, you end up with the right flowers. And that's what building culture is all about.
That's a great metaphor. I really like it. So just a thought that I had, is culture something that brands as well as small businesses should really think about, or is this something more for like bigger brands? So what's your opinion on that?
It's for everybody. When two or more people come together, shared culture is going to form, whether you like it or not. So if you've got more than one person in your organization, be it suppliers or partners or employees, whatever, you need to sit down and define what it is. You really need to spend time doing it. And what you will find is when you get it right, your marketing, your messaging, the way you interact with your clients will overflow from that real understanding of who you are. And it'll make everything else so much easier. There's a great phrase from, I think it was Herb Kelleher, the chairman of Southwest Airlines. He said, if you get your culture right, if you understand who you are and what your values are, you don't spend hours on stuff that doesn't matter. You go, that doesn't matter, and you move on. And it's so important, no matter what size you are, actually having a real clear understanding of who you are and what you're about is important to making sure you're spending time on the right things.
And Benjamin, why are you so passionate about culture?
I think for me, because when you get that culture right, you start to connect with people who share those values. You start to be able to bring people together to do bigger things, to become more than the sum of their parts. When we get that right, it enables us to really connect with people. And as humans, that's what we need more than anything. We need that deep human connection, and building culture allows us to create a space where everybody understands the rules of the game. You can build trust, and therefore you can build those really deep connections. And you can do it alongside building something together. There's a reason why you're doing it. There's a deep-seated purpose in that relationship. And actually that helps us build connections. And as humans, that's what we need more than anything. And I think, over the last year, we have discovered that in spades, that we need connection. And when we're locked up in our houses without connection, it's really quite painful.
Absolutely. So you just mentioned something that I'm also very passionate about, which is community and human connections. So why do we need that? Why they're so important, you think?
Because we're social animals. Why when you're in prison, do they use solitary confinement as a punishment? Because it hurts. It really hurts when we're not with other humans, when we're not with other people. And I'm not just talking about getting together, going to the pub and chat. Just being in a room with someone, sometimes it's just all the connection you need. But we are social creatures. We need connection. We've grown up in community. And actually, one of the good things we've seen over the last year is actually small local communities coming together, looking after each other, putting on street parties, actually having barbecues in their front gardens so they can all chat to each other on VE Day, all those kind of things. Actually, life has been brought back to some of those communities, which has been amazing, because we really desperately need that sort of thing. And I don't know whether was it Johan Hari, the journalist who wrote a book called Lost Connections, talking about kind of mental illness and depression and all the kind of illnesses that are brought on through lack of connection, through lack of belonging, through lack of community. And it's really clear that as humans, we need it. It's part of who we are.
That's part of the human experience, isn't it? So that's really, it's fantastic. And how can we build cultures? How building cultures enables to those deep connections to form. So how can we do that? How can we build a connection through culture, you think?
It comes down to the work of both Pete Skillman and a guy called Alex Pentland, who works at MIT in the Human Dynamics Lab. And what they discovered was that actually, in order for people to do their best work, in order for people to achieve, we need a safe space. What we talk about psychological safety, a place where I can express myself and be myself. And in order to do that, Professor Alex Pentland from MIT did some really great studies on belonging and what creates belonging. And one of the things he discovered is it's not necessarily, in fact, it's completely not the words we use to interact. It's all the other things, the eye contact, the way we operate, the values we hold, all the way we behave, all those things create real belonging. And actually, it's so important that we create a place and we define what that culture is, and we define those values so everybody understands the rules of the game, and it can become a safe place to belong. Once you get that belonging, we can start to really build that human connection, because there's a level of trust, there's a level of shared understanding of the world that allows us to start to really connect on deep levels.
I think you can create a peace through trust as well. So I think there's a lot of good coming through trust, and also we work with people that we trust, isn't it? So we like working with, we don't like to be. I think we're quite safe animals in a way. We don't like to take risk in a way. So kind of building that trust really help to develop relationship, better working relationships as well. So
absolutely, trust is absolutely foundational. A lot of the work that I do when I go into an organization is starting by spending time trying to build that trust, so we can actually then do the work. And so that level of trust, and that comes from companies being authentic. I trust you when I think what you're putting on the outside is what's on the inside. That's where we can build trust. In order to do that, you have to be really clear on who you are, what you stand for, what your values are, which is a significant part of your culture.
Yeah, and you need to communicate as well that
absolutely
through all sorts of different communication strategies. So I wanted to ask you more about COVID. So how, obviously, this has been something that, has changed our life in many different ways. So I know you've been very busy in the last couple of years. So I wonder, is that somehow kind of related to COVID, and how somehow COVID has affected culture?
I think initially, everybody threw their hands up and goes, we don't know what we're doing. How do we do this? But as kind of time moved on, people start to realize that actually we can carry on and people can work from home, but that's a whole different way of operating. How do we, at that point, still build culture, build community, build a shared set of values in our organization when everybody's disparate? How do we create digital water cooler time? So a lot of the work has been on helping people understand how to build remotely and how to continue to keep those connections, how to build trust, how to have a different measure of success in terms of, up until that point, a lot of organizations have measured success as hours spent sat at my desk working, which may or may not equate to outputs and productivity, depending on what sort of mood I was in. So we have to so there's a lot of work done around that over the early days of COVID. Now we've got to the point of people coming back to the office, and there's been a fair few people on furlough, had a lot of time to think and wonder, what am I actually doing? Do I want to do this work? Do I want to do something else? So we've got a lot of kind of organizations now looking at, well, what are we doing? What is important? What good are we putting out into the world? And how are we going to operate? So actually, and that all comes down to, if this is our culture, if these are our values, if this is what we stand for, how does that translate into behaviors in the new economy? How does that translate to behaviors in the way we do things now? How does that translate into how we're going to manage our staff if half of them are working at home and half of them are coming into the office and they're not all in the office at the same time? What does that mean? And how do we make sure those processes and ways of working reflect the values, what we've said we stand for? And so there's a lot of work to be done around that in helping organizations figure that out and build systems that truly reflect what their corporate values are, what their core values are, rather than just taking it off the shelf and this has worked, because that might not fit with who you are as an organization. So there's a lot of work to be done around that, certainly.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think and also I kind of appreciate, your take on that, which is also look at the positive out of this pandemic and really thinking about and also encouraging brands and your clients as well to do so, just also really, okay, so this is what happened. So what can we do about that? How can we change the culture? How can we work on our mission, our values, and take this as a start of a new journey rather than, oh my God, well, what do I need to do now? So that's
part of it as well is some of those organizations have not been missed at all, which has been a real revelation to some of them. They're like, well, people don't actually need us. People don't really want them. They've not been bothered that we've not been around. That's been a wake-up call.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of interest in I think the audience is like people, just normal people who are buying products are becoming more aware of what they're buying as well. So I think somehow the brands they need to take that in consideration, because the whole world changed. We as individuals have changed as well. So is what the brands are offering still valid? Is this still reflecting what we need as individuals? So what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And beyond that, what brands are finding is that they can't just become woke washed. They can't just go, right, everybody wants CSR and sustainability, so we'll put out some stuff about sustainability and pretend we're sustainable, but really we're still destroying stuff. Our supply chain is still a mess. Actually, we know about that now. Social media has allowed all that to come to the fore, which, you get that wrong and you can be destroyed in 10 minutes on social media. And so it's not enough just to kind of put a facade out and pretend. Like, you actually have to, underlying in your foundations and in your bones, deliver what you say. And I had a conversation with a colleague who works in culture recently about this whole thing. A lot of people when it comes to Pride Month, everybody changes their logos to rainbow here and rainbow there. But actually, if you look in the history and look in what they've done outside of that, they're not really putting any money or any support into the LGBTQ diversity or anything like that. They're not doing anything specific. They're just using it as marketing during Pride Month. It's like, well, that's not enough. That's not what, and we can spot that a mile off. So actually, a lot of these companies have got to go back and go, well, hold on, what do we stand for? And let's make sure we stand for something and then build on that in how we portray ourselves and what we put out there, rather than just, putting stuff out because it's what's going on right now, even though we really don't give a monkeys.
Yeah. Well, Benjamin, lots to take. So thank you. It was very, very inspiring, your talk, and I hope also whoever is listening or watching to this, find it quite inspiring. So thank you so much. So if people want to find out more about you, Benjamin,
if you want to connect with me, if you get onto the website, which is down here, thecultureguy.co.uk, or you can get onto Google and search for The Culture Guy, and I will appear there right at the top. Fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Benjamin, and I hope you enjoy the coffee. How was the espresso? Was it good? Tasty? Strong?
It's good. I like it. I'm not one for, to me, espresso is just too small. I like my coffee in bulk. So I like it strong, but it's got to be more. It's got to be more than just a simple espresso. There's got to be more of it.
Like a triple espresso. Oh.
Yeah, that'll do. That'll do me.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. Okay. Cheers.
Cheers, Riccardo.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.